welcome to 10K Sports. I'm Teddy Kaplan alongside Clay Tipton and Max Cohen. We're going to bring to you a lot of exciting content in the next few months, so we hope that you enjoy. We're going to start off episode 1 by welcoming all of you and explaining what we're going to do and explaining our format going forward. So why are we called 10K? Well, we're going to have 10 segments each episode. So the first segment is going to be a little hello and welcome and give some breaking sporting news and current events. Then the second segment is going to be NFL, NBA, and MLB general updates. Then the third segment is going to be some other sports general updates. Then the fourth one is going to be an interesting thing. We're going to have a random sport of the day discussion. So today we're going to have Jared Abrams on to talk about horse racing. Then the fifth segment you're not going to want to miss. It's an argument of the day about one of our teams. Then the sixth segment is a special guest segment. Today we're going to have Jacob Cohen on to discuss why Cleveland loves LeBron James still. Then the seventh segment is going to be some predictions. We're going to have 3 predictions per episode, and we're going to keep standings with how well we do. Then the eighth segment is going to be a boomer bust segment, where we're also going to keep standings. And then the ninth segment will be hot takes. And then the 10th segment will be top 10 lists.
3.
All right, and now to start us off, Clay is going to talk about Giannis getting hacked today.
All right, listeners. So I'm sure most of you guys are on Twitter, and I'm assuming you guys follow sports. Today, the third best player in the NBA, Giannis, my boy, wearing his jersey as respect, got hacked today, unfortunately. And apparently so did his bank accounts. So, Max, how do you feel about the hacking and potentially not having the same passwords for your Twitter as well as your bank account?
Well, I think it's a good lesson for all that you got to change your passwords once in a while, because if you have the same password for everything, it makes it very easy for different people to get in. But also, like, obviously he was hacked and he didn't put this message out. What do you guys think in terms of whether or not some of these players, when they get hacked, like for instance, Draymond Green maybe, do you think that's intentional ever, or do you think it's always accidental? Like, do you think some players get hacked to get a message across, or do you think?
Oh,
I think generally, yes. I think that some of these hacks are not actually hacks. I think that they say some stupid things or they purposely get hacked. This, I don't think was one of them. This, I think he genuinely got hacked, given that his bank account got hacked and the stuff that he said on Twitter, like, he has no motivation to say any of that. It was just disrespectful. And we're not going to get into what exactly he said. You guys can look it up if you're interested. But completely disrespectful. And he definitely did not purposely say any of that.
yeah. I mean, I completely agree with Teddy. I think many times, and this doesn't just happen with NBA athletes, it happens with people where they don't mean to say something or don't mean to post a video and they say, oh, I got hacked. But there are some cases where people genuinely get hacked. And I think it's pretty blatant here that he got hacked, especially if he got his bank accounts hacked. That would be a huge bummer.
Yep. All right. Moving on to segment first, we're going to talk about the NFL schedule being released today. That's the big piece of news in the sporting world today. We'll return to this more in depth next week or our next episode, which may be later this week. But first, each of us, we're going to say one game we're looking forward to with our teams and then a general NFL game that we're looking forward to. So Clay, go first. What do you got?
Well, so thank you, Teddy. The first game I'm looking forward to, we should probably state which teams we're fans of.
Yeah, so what are you a fan of, Clay?
So I'm a diehard Cleveland Browns fan. So as far as my game that I'm looking forward to for my team would probably got to be, I think it's week 4, Browns at the Cowboys. And the reason is, even though it's not really a rivalry game or anything like that, Cowboys, America's team, national spotlight, even if it's not a primetime game, I'd love to go into Dallas and just smash the Cowboys. And I think we actually have a shot. Both teams underachieved last year. Both teams are very talented. Both teams have new coaches. They've yet to put the talent together. I know the Cowboys went 14-2 in Zeke and Dak's rookie season, but haven't really done much since. So I kind of view them in similar boats, and we'll see how that game shakes out. The game I'm looking forward to, I can't remember what week it is. It's
week 12.
Saints. Week 12, is it at San Francisco or in New Orleans?
It is in New Orleans.
So,
week 10. It's week 10.
Week 10, 49ers at New Orleans. I mean, that's going to be a great game. Great game. I think the two best teams in the NFL right now squaring off. I'm excited, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, Max, how about you?
So I would love to say week one, it would be the Bears at the Detroit Lions. One thing I love about that is that for the first time, we are not playing the Green Bay. I'm a diehard Chicago Bears fan, by the way. We are not playing the Green Bay Packers week one, and I'm a firm believer that that winning week one builds a lot of momentum for the season. And if you have an easier season schedule, you can build momentum up towards the later games when they get harder. Fun fact I found out of the day, the Bears have not won a week one game since 2013. That's second in the NFL, only to the Cleveland Browns, who have not won a week one game since 2004.
Wow, that's crazy. All right, and then you're looking forward to the same game as Clay, the Saints versus the Niners.
I am, but one thing that's very interesting is when I was taking a peek through the schedule, I noticed that I was like, wow, the Patriots are playing some interesting teams, but it's kind of weird to me that the Patriots aren't the Patriots anymore.
Yeah, it's crazy. They're still getting their primetime exposure, though. Like, it's very interesting. Then for me, I'm most looking forward to Jets-Bills week one. So I'm a big Jets fan. We lost to the Bills last year, 17-16 week one in the Meadowlands. We were up 16-0. CJ Mosley got hurt. Bills scored 17 straight. What's interesting is the Bills season ended just like it started. So week one, they were down 16-0 and came back and won. And then in the playoffs, they were up by 16 and then they lost. And then the season game I'm most looking forward to is the Saints versus the Vikings on Christmas Day. And it's a Friday this year. So the NFL on a Friday. That'll be interesting, competing with the NFL. All right, on to segment number 2. We're going to give some general updates on the big 3 sports. But first, we have a special guest, Simon Gibbs, to talk about this being the 4-year anniversary of the Bartolo Colon home run. And Simon Gibbs is here with us. He went to camp with me for 7 years, and he's a huge Mets fan, and he's going to talk about this being the 4-year anniversary of the Bartolo Colon home run. But first, we're going to show you guys the home run. So I'm going to share my screen. Here it is. Make it full screen.
He tries one, deep left field. That goes Upton, back near the wall. It's out of here.
You hear Gary Cohen.
Bartolo has done it. The impossible has happened.
All right, so the impossible has happened. Bartolo has done it. Simon, tell us your thoughts.
So there are a lot of things that stand out about this home run to me. I will not forget that for a long time. I remember watching that game live. I was at home. But, you know, the two things that stand out to me probably the most are, one, I was actually in attendance for what I believe was Bartolo's first at-bat at Citi Field. And I happened to have good seats. My friend had seats very close behind home plate. So we go there, and I am literally sitting a mere few feet away from Bartolo as 3 pitches in a row, he swings, misses, and his helmet goes flying off. So this is not like your average pitcher at bat that we're talking about. This is 10 times worse. I mean, he was incompetent, couldn't even find a helmet that fit him. And not only was it hilarious to watch him hear that home run, watch the Mets vacate the dugout, and have Gary, Keith, and Ron screaming in the background, but I don't know if you noticed this, but the funniest part is on the replay, Bartolo doesn't know what to do with his bat. He's holding his bat halfway down the first base path and forgets to drop it. So I thought that home run was hilarious. I'll never forget that.
Yeah. Bartolo's career batting average, .084.
Yeah, I think I remember him swinging and missing at almost every other pitch he faced.
Yeah. Insane. That season in which he hit a home run was 2016. You know how many total hits he had that season?
I would be shocked if it was more than 10.
Did the
5
Mets
total.
end up winning that game?
The Mets did wind up winning the game. He went 5 of 60 that season.
How much did
For a .083 batting average.
How much did they win that game by?
Putting me
Like,
on
was
the
that
spot
home
here.
run the winning run?
The Mets won 6-3 that game. They got Bartolo some runs, or he helped his own cause. They scored 2 runs in the top of the 9th. They were up 4-3 heading into the 9th. So yeah, anything else you want to add to this, Gibbs?
Bartolo's a Mets legend. Between that play and the play of him barehanding it and flipping it behind his back, I've seen some of the craziest athletic plays from a guy you never picture making those plays before. So I miss him. I kind of wish he was still in the league.
I really miss him. He was just a legend. He was such an endearing personality that everyone could kind of relate to and respect. And in that rotation with all the young guns. Bartolo was kind of like the old man holding down the fort, and he was very dependable. He never got hurt, and he was just there for you when you needed a nice quality start. So
Yeah,
Bartolo will be missed. That home run was a legendary moment, and we thank you very much, Simon, for coming on board. Everyone listening, please check out Simon on Twitter at Simon Gibbs, and he writes for the Vanderbilt Hustler. He's the lead sports reporter, I think lead editor too now. So check out his content. He provides great content. All right. Thank you to Simon for his words of wisdom. Now we're going to give some quick general updates about the MLB, NFL, and NBA. So the MLB is considering a possible return in mid-June, spring training 2, and then July 1st opening day. We'll see what happens there. The owners are thinking about sending a proposal to the PA within the next week. NBA facilities are reopening in states where they're allowed to do tomorrow, May 8th. And the NFL, same thing, starting May 15th. We'll have more detail on this next episode. Now on to segment number 3, some other sport updates. So golf is having 2 big matches in the next 3 weeks. We're having a match with Rory, Dustin Johnson, Ricky Fowler, and Matt Wolff on May 17th at 2 p.m. So that'll be the first live sport that's back. And then we're going to have a crossover match with Tiger and Phil Mickelson playing alongside Peyton Manning and Tom Brady on May 24th. They just announced that today. So my question for Max and Clay, who aren't big golf fans, is are you excited for this match or not at all?
Absolutely.
I'm very excited about it.
While I don't follow golf as closely as you do, Teddy, or maybe some of our listeners, I am definitely a big golf fan, especially as far as playing. My golf game is definitely below average, but I'm coordinated enough to have a good time with it. I'm terrible off the tee. I'm solid when on the fairway, and I'm actually a decent putter. So I definitely enjoy playing golf and enjoy watching it too, especially with there being no sports on otherwise. So what else would I be?
And so we have Phil playing alongside Brady and then Tiger playing alongside Peyton. So we'll provide some more content about this match closer to the date, but just keeping you all in the loop there. The other sport returning on May 17th is NASCAR. The UFC is back this weekend, and the Premier Lacrosse League is doing a quarantine tournament in the month of July. So they're the first sport to really return with this modified format. We haven't seen that in other.
Other than UFC.
And the UFC, that's true. But that's not really a modified format, though. They're kind of continuing what they're doing.
True.
And so now we're going to go on to segment number 4. And today we have a special guest, Jared Abrams, to talk about horse racing. So we'll welcome Jared. All right, and now we welcome Jared Abrams here to talk about horse racing. So Jared is a huge Ravens fan. He went to high school with Max and Clay, and he currently studies at USC. He's a rising senior, just like us. So Jared, take it away. Tell us about horse racing. I'm sure our viewers are very excited, and they want to know what to look for, what's going to happen with the Kentucky Derby. We're all excited for that, and just give us a general update on the sport.
He is 10K Sports horse racing expert.
Proud to be here. So as we know, some of you may know, last Saturday was supposed to be the Kentucky Derby. So for horse racing fans all over, it's was a somber weekend, but
Wait, hold on a second. I'm going to interrupt you. Can the horses get coronavirus, or do you not know?
No, horses cannot.
They cannot get coronavirus.
Yes, or at least the strain that the humans have.
Interesting.
Okay.
So horses are immune. However, there are protocols that have to come into place with the riders and with the grooms to take care of the horses and the trainers and all the people that go into making it all work. But getting back to it, so as some of you may know, the Kentucky Derby was rescheduled for September 5th. But the Triple Crown this year is going to be a little confusing. If some people don't know, the Triple Crown is the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness Stakes, and the Belmont Stakes. And typically they're run within a 5-week period. But since the Kentucky Derby will be in September this year, and one of the event that's kind of the culmination of the horse racing season is the Breeders' Cup, which takes place in November, things get a little tricky with the Triple Crown. But they're going to have to try and reschedule it in a way where the Kentucky Derby might not be the first of the Triple Crown races, which would be completely different than normal. This is actually the second time that the Kentucky Derby has ever been rescheduled from the first Saturday in May, and the first time was due to World War II. So it's a crazy time. Horse racing, a lot of tracks were put on hold lately due to coronavirus. There have been a couple that have been operating, but shortly they should be coming back. For example, Churchill Downs in Louisville will be running their first races of the season next Saturday. Up in Northern California, Golden Gate should be opening up a week from today for races, and hopefully, barring or with county approval, Santa Anita in Southern California will open next Friday.
Awesome. So you can resume to racing soon, or at least riding.
Yeah. No,
who would you say? Who would you say is the top horse in the game?
Well, see, that's a complicated issue. A lot of people look to the 3-year-olds, the horses that can run in the Kentucky Derby, is trying to identify the best 3-year-old. But when you look at who the best horse is in the game, a lot of times it's an older horse. And right now it's all over the place because I don't know if you guys are aware of.
Can you explain the rule after you finish? Can you explain the rule about certain ages being allowed to race and not race?
Yeah, I'll go for that. I'll start with that right now. So for the majority of horses, so just start with 2-year-olds, for example. So around April, so about last month, the first 2-year-olds of that crop started running. And 2-year-olds only run against 2-year-olds. So they can't run against any horses that are older than that. And older horses can't run against 2-year-olds, vice versa. And then at the beginning of a horse's 3-year-old year, most of the races are restricted to just 3-year-olds. But as you get past or get towards the Kentucky Derby season, the races will open up to 3-year-olds and upward. But for the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont, it's restricted to just 3-year-olds. So for an owner or trainer or for a single horse, they really only have one shot to get a horse into the Derby, which is why it's so difficult. And there are 20 horses in the starting gate for the Derby, and everyone's trying to get there. So it's definitely, you get one shot. If you can make it there once, it's an accomplishment for a career for most owners and trainers. And it's even harder for a jockey to get there.
Yep. How are your horses doing? So tell us about your horses. Like, how many do you own them? Do you train? What's your role exactly?
So my family has owned racehorses for over 25 years. Currently, we have 4 mares, which are mares that they have foals back in Kentucky. One of them is newly retired. She just finished racing, and she's now going to become a mom. We have 1 foal that was just born about a month and a half ago. We have another one that should be being born at the end of this month. And then we have 2 yearlings, which are 1-year-old horses. So a horse turns of age in January 1st of every year. Mm-hmm. So that's how they make it a universal age. And then we have how many 3-year-olds? We have two 3-year-olds, a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old. Those are 3 of those 4 are at the track. One should be coming to the track soon. But yeah, I'd say we're about somewhere around 15-ish normally. Awesome. in that range.
Well, hopefully your season can resume soon, and we thank you very much for coming on today. We really appreciate having you. We know that you're
definitely
a total expert at horse racing, and we wish you well.
Out there,
what's that?
All the viewers out there, make sure to start betting on horse racing. Last Saturday, the record handle for a track before that was 16 million. It was 41 million that day.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
Pour the money into the horse racing market.
So, Jared, thanks again for coming on, and we hope to have you back. All right. Thank you, Jared, for coming on to talk about horse racing. And now we're moving on to segment number 5, which is our argument section. So we're going to channel our inner Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman. And today's topic is Kevin Durant. So Durant tore his Achilles back in early June last year in the NBA Finals. He got surgery soon thereafter. So in early to mid-June, he got his surgery. And so it looks like the NBA season may resume in around July. So the question on the table today is, if the NBA season resumes in July, should Kevin Durant play? So we'll go to Clay first.
Absolutely not. I think it would be stupid on the Nets' part to allow him to play for a couple reasons. One, most importantly, I don't think they have a legitimate shot, and I'll get into why. I mean, obviously they have a shot. I'd say if Kevin Durant and Kyrie come back, even if we don't know how healthy they are, they probably are in the top 5 or 6 teams as far as what you would think has a shot. But for me, that's not enough and not a clear enough path. 2, you worry about re-injury. An Achilles injury is probably the worst injury you can think of that actually happens relatively commonly. As far as bad injuries, I mean, obviously Sean Livingston's injury might be considered worse, but I've only seen that happen a couple times. And Achilles is relatively regular in comparison. And with that, rarely do you come back at full strength. And if you re-aggravate that or re-tear that, I think he retires on spot. Because you got to remember, he's still 30. I mean, he's entering the end of his prime. So with all that considered, and lastly, and least importantly, Kyrie and KD have never played together. Sure, they might have played together on Team USA or something, but as far as on the Brooklyn Nets, they've never played a game together. And asking them to just go right into the playoffs without any team chemistry, I think there's going to be growing pains, and there's no reason to have these growing pains when I don't really see them playing for a legitimate championship, let alone risking a re-aggravated injury.
I completely agree with that. I also don't think Kyrie Irving is ready or fully healthy. I believe he had his surgery in mid to late February, maybe either right before or right after the All-Star break. And this was a lingering injury that was bothering him all year. So the fact that he got surgery that late showed that he believed he was going to be out for the season and not ready till August. So you have to take into account that Kyrie, if he comes back, is not going to be completely healthy. Then, as Clay said with Kevin Durant, Dominique Wilkins 1 year came back the next year successfully. He missed 11 months and then averaged, I believe, 29.5 points per game. But Isaiah Thomas was never the same. Kobe Bryant, never the same. And then the most recent example is DeMarcus Cousins, who came back faster than he should have. And then he aggravated his quad and tore his quad, then came back way too fast from that, and then tore his ACL all in the same knee. I'm no doctor, but I have to believe part of it is like coordinated.
And also, yeah, because you risk injury because you're overcompensating for something that's not fully healthy and fully healed. Because let alone like the actual like muscle or tendon or bone, let's say for any injury healing, then you have to build back muscle around it to strengthen it. Like you can't just wait till it's healed and then go say, okay, let's go. I mean, these are top level athletes playing at top of their game. You know, we're not just talking about like, oh, taking a walk down the street after you tore your Achilles. We're talking about playing in a high level game.
All right. So I completely disagree. So I was taking notes here. So there are 5 main points to your arguments. Okay. So I'm going to break them down. So the first point of we'll go through Clay's list first, then we'll go through Max's list. Okay. So this is assuming the NBA resumes in July, and they're gonna have a bit of a training camp first. So I think they announced a 24 or 28 day plan of training camp with individual and then team workouts first. So it's not like they're going right into the playoffs. They're gonna have a training camp and then they resume, likely with a regular season first. We'll get to that a little bit later, but I expect them not to go right to the playoffs because these teams have these regional TV deals. And these regional deals the networks want these regular season games to happen so that way they can get all their revenue. So that way they can pay, the teams can get all their revenue from these RSNs. Anyway, so Clay's argument number 1 is the Nets don't have a shot. That's just absurd. We're starting a whole new season here. It's effectively a new season. The Nets are the 7th seed right now. They've been playing great all year with Kyrie, and they have a great supporting cast. Then you had the best player in the game, probably the second best player in the game, third best player if we want to count LeBron and Giannis. So he's the third best player in the game.
And Kawhi.
But he's a top 5 player in the game before his injury. Before his injury, excuse me, Clay, I wasn't interrupting you. I don't need to hear it. Excuse me. Durant was a top 5 player before his injury. The Nets totally have a chance. The whole fact that they don't have a chance, that's ridiculous. The fact that the championship's already decided, don't believe it. What was the last – so the NBA season was canceled on a Wednesday, right? What happened that Tuesday? I think the Nets beat the Lakers in Los Angeles. You're going to say, oh, the Lakers had huge games that Sunday and Thursday. Oh, the Lakers were overlooking the Nets. I don't
They
care.
were.
The point is, no, I don't care. That's not the point. The point.
Hold on, was
that-
Kyrie playing
no,
that game?
No, excuse me. Let me
Was
talk.
Kyrie playing in
My
that
point,
game?
excuse me, my point is that Nets team without Kyrie and Durant was able to beat the Lakers in a game. In the regular season, but it was still a win. They had LeBron playing, okay? My point is that you can't write out the Nets. They totally have a chance. That's a ridiculous argument. Number 2, the re-injury chance. It's a very major injury. And I'm going to kind of combine this with Max's second point about Wilkins and the players coming back too soon. So the key point in Max's argument is that Wilkins came back 11 months later. Guess what? Returning in July is 13 months later. It's plenty of time. All these instances of these guys coming back too soon is 7 months, 8 months. You never see a guy coming back 13 months later. There's no examples of this. So we really have no idea how Durant will be, okay? Comparing him to these past cases is ridiculous because they've all come back too soon. I agree. But coming back 13 months after the injury is not too soon. The key point to realize here is if this coronavirus shutdown never happened, Durant would be back in July at full strength. They were planning on this. In time to prepare for the next season, he was going to resume fully operational by now. You got to remember, before the shutdown in February, he was playing 3-on-3 basketball. He was back.
Hold on.
Now it's been 5 months. He's
Hold
ready to go. Then the third point of Clay was the chemistry with Kyrie Irving. Oh, and wait, let me add one more thing. To that pass point. The pass point is basically, you're assuming that there's going to be some difference if Durant comes back 13 months later versus 15 months later. That's effectively what it is, right? It's 13 versus 15 months. If he comes back in July versus coming back in September. It is. It is. Because you guys were fine with him shutting down the whole season and coming back for next season before coronavirus, right? So this shouldn't change anything. Okay, you could argue his rehab got slightly delayed, fine, but we're giving him that. The fact that he had coronavirus, maybe that makes an impact. I don't think so. I think that Durant is totally healthy. He's good to go. The risk of re-injury is the same if he comes back in July or September or December. It doesn't make
Teddy, everybody's rehab process.
The next thing, excuse me. The next thing is the chemistry with Kyrie Irving. Okay, they have training camp for a reason. They've played together with Team USA. It's the playoffs. If these NBA stars can't put aside their personal agendas, then they don't deserve to be such high-paid stars.
It's not personal.
And then the third thing, and then the fourth thing, the final point by Max, was about Kyrie Irving not playing. And remember, I'm the moderator of this discussion, so I can mute both of you. So I'd be careful if I were you. Don't be trying to interrupt me here. I can mute both of you. Okay?
All right, dictator.
Okay. He's muted. He's on mute. He can't unmute himself. He is muted. You see him wailing his hands around. I'll unmute him just to be nice. This is the first episode. We'll go easy on him.
Ridiculous.
But he's unmuted. Anyway, the fourth point was Kyrie Irving not being ready. That's a fair point. I think he will be ready though, because he's been saying that he'll be ready, and he was planning on being back in time for training camp, which is basically around when this will happen. When training camp was supposed to happen is when they'll be resuming this new training camp. So that's my main argument. That next year's training camp is at the same time is going to be the same time as the resumed season's training camp. Okay, so if Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving were ready to go for next season's training camp, which everyone's acknowledged they would be, then they should be now. And I get it. Durant may not be the same. I totally understand that. But the fact that he wouldn't be the same is not a reason to delay his return from July till September. It makes no difference.
I think it completely is, because you have
to see him in September and vice versa. That extra 2 months is not going to do it. That is my main point.
You have to understand.
But the extra 2 months will not make such a significant difference to turn down your chance of a title. It's a whole new season. There's no chemistry. The Nets have a total chance of winning. Like the momentum in the league. Like the Lakers haven't just won 10 games in a row. No, it's a whole new season. The players haven't been together for 3 months by the time they get back.
Can we say something?
Season, the Nets have a great chance of winning, and they need to take advantage of that. Thank you very much.
You have to understand.
You want to say something, or do you? Okay, you go.
I'll start. So you have to understand everybody's rehab process is a little bit different. Like, for example, I know it's a different sport, but Jason Peters and Terrell Suggs came back 6-7 months after they tore their Achilles, and they were as good as they were. Everybody's body is different, and until Kevin Durant fully feels that he's 100%, where he wants to go back to his normal. Because I believe that if his thing is fully healed and he's mentally ready to come back next season, he's going to be an even better player next season. You don't want to rush him back and screw up his mental or let him.
How's it rushing him back?
How's it rushing him back? Talk to Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard said, "I'm hurt." Everybody else said, "No, you're not."
You're not understanding what I'm saying.
No, I get what you're saying.
How is it a rush? It's 13 months after the injury. It's not a rush. Everyone that's come back from this injury has been 11 months or less.
Here's what you're
There's
missing.
never been an instance of someone coming back 13 months or greater.
Here's what you're
Totally
missing.
not rushing. It's taking forever.
Here's what
The
you're
Nets have a
missing.
great chance of winning a title this season. He needs to be there.
Can Clay
Here's
speak, please?
Here's what you're missing about my point. I can't speak for Max, but I think it's similar. I agree with you that in the grand scheme of things, there's probably not that big of a difference between 13 months and 15 months. I
Exactly.
agree.
That's my point.
But
That's all my point.
here's what you're missing. I don't think the Nets have a legitimate shot of making the NBA Finals, let alone win. Okay? So then you go, okay, well, do you just want to play him in these games and risk injury?
But why is it any more risky? Why is it any more risky now versus the regular season in October?
Absolutely. Totally. It's like
Why?
because
also
there's a
Playoffs. Okay, he needs load management. Fine, rest him. You get
Well,
Durant for
if
50% of the games. It's
you're
better
not
than 0% of the games.
Here's what you're saying. First round, they're playing Milwaukee. Okay.
No, they're not. They're playing Toronto.
Okay, fine.
Fine,
Toronto. Fine. Toronto.
The
Let's just
defending
say they're playing
champions.
Toronto. Okay.
Yeah, without Kawhi. Without
You-
Kawhi, defending champions, they lost their best player.
but they haven't had their best player all year.
Okay, the Nets got a game off the Sixers last year when the Sixers were way better. The Sixers were
No.
probably comparable to Toronto.
Oh,
I
We got a game off them, and that was without Durant and Kyrie.
Stop. Okay, can I speak?
No, I
Listen.
think the Nets can totally beat Toronto. At least make it
Okay, you
competitive.
got
It's
your
worth a
20
chance.
I have
Unless
my-
there's 100%, like I think the odds of them winning probably less than 50%.
Penny,
but it
you
makes
got
it worth it. It's a
25
calculated
minutes
decision.
to speak, and I have
The
2 minutes.
return from winning a championship is worth it.
You got 25 minutes.
We have
to speak.
another. By the way, we have another 3 minutes here. We have another 3 minutes on this segment. Then we're moving on to interview Jacob Cohen. So another
Okay,
3
let me
minutes.
see. Okay, so look, the difference is you're not going to win the Bucks or the Raptors if you load manage Kevin Durant. Okay, so that's
Okay, perfect. Play him every game. If he needs
Okay,
to
so
be
then
load managed,
that's
you load manage him. If he doesn't, then you play him.
You're
We'll
not
see what
load
happens.
First off, even if his Achilles is healed after 11 months, he hasn't been playing 5-on-5.
Okay, so why don't you try? Why don't you see what happens? If he can't handle it,
Because
you
you
shut
know
him
what the
down again.
Warriors did? You know what the Warriors did last year in the finals? They tried with Kevin Durant.
Yeah,
And guess
but
what
that was a
happened?
different. That hadn't been okay. How long was the layoff there? It was certainly not 13 months.
He had a calf strain.
Okay,
and
and it wasn't 13 months. It
and then
wasn't
came
13
back
months though.
within his first game of
The
playing.
Nets are paying this man over $40 million to sit with a suit on the bench.
But that's the
Ridiculous.
investment. That's
The
the
guy
one.
needs to
That's
take
my
off his
point.
suit,
You're
put on his
paid
jersey, and
$40
play.
million this year for a long-term investment. Why would you
But,
just?
but if it's okay, so here's my question for you. You say the Nets have no chance of winning a title this season.
No,
What
no shot.
changes next season? Why is it any? Let's just say, why is it any
Because
different
you
next season?
have Kevin Durant and Kyrie playing together all
no,
season.
but this season we're actually in the playoffs. We're guaranteed to be in the playoffs effectively.
Yeah, but you're because
Next
Teddy,
season, that's not the case. We have a better chance this season than next season.
No,
Why?
Completely.
Why? Why does it make a difference if we play Toronto in the conference finals versus the first
because
round? Who
next
cares?
year you'll have a fully healthy Kevin Durant.
Nobody
and
will have a fully
who
healthy
will have
Kevin
the
Durant
first
now.
half of the season to form chemistry. The second half.
So your
to get
point
a
is the
better
chemistry.
team. And it's
here's what's going to happen. You guys are going to be 21-20 in the first half of
How do
next
you
season.
build? How do you build chemistry?
by playing games.
Exactly. So why not try the playoffs? If nothing
Because
else,
not enough
if
games?
nothing else, no. But Clay, listen to me for a second. If nothing else, at least they're building chemistry in getting swept by Toronto, right?
He might get hurt again.
No.
Yeah, let me
but
ask you a
what-
question.
Why would he get? So then he should never play. If he might get hurt again playing in the playoffs, he should never play again. He should just shut it down because he might get hurt again, right?
It's
Why
a
he might
4-year
get hurt
investment.
again?
You have
Why
to
is it any
prepare
difference
for
if
the
he
next
might
3
get
years.
hurt again in July versus
Let
September?
me ask you
That's
this
my
final
question.
question, and then
There's
we'll move.
no evidence to point to the fact
Sorry, Max,
their
I'll let you
injury
go.
risk is any greater in July than September. There's no evidence. None.
Okay, Let me
None
ask,
no evidence.
let me ask you this final question. Okay, you
Okay, and
answer.
then we're moving on.
Okay.
We got
If I
to interview
told you
Jacob.
one
He's
of
going to
two
talk to us
scenarios,
about Cleveland sports.
Okay. If I told you one of two scenarios, one, okay, ideally in a situation, someone who tore their Achilles would have at least 20 to 25 games to play. You could load manage a little and gradually increase before you were like, all right, he's back and ready to go. Okay. But you said, okay, you could do that, but you have to wait to next season. Or you could play someone and just set him out of the gate, right? And guess what? You win first round. The beginning of the second round, he tears his Achilles again and his career's over. So now you've played him You paid him $40 million this year to basically get you to the second round of the playoffs and now never play again. Or you wait to get a better seed next year. Which would you rather do?
My point is that re-injury risk is not high, is no higher playing in July than in September. It's what I said the whole time. That you're a successful player that Max pointed out. Max pointed out Wilkins, who missed 11 months. Max pointed out Wilkins, who missed 11 months and came back and was successful. So I just muted Clay because I wanted to get that word in because he was trying to interrupt me, which is a great tool, by the way. It's amazing. Anyway, and here's the thing, Clay. Let me ask you this.
Yes.
Like, I think here's where our priorities are different because I'm a Nets fan, okay? And you're not. You're an NBA fan, okay? So here's my question for you. If the Nets could win an NBA championship this year with Durant and then he never plays again, would I take that? Like, well, yes, I would 100% take that. Without a doubt. I've never seen a championship. I want to see a championship.
Nobody's
arguing whatever it takes to win a championship. It's kind of like we were talking about we were talking about Bartolo Colon before. Now we're going to talk about Johan Santana, who threw the first Mets no-hitter in 2014, the Nohan they call it. He ruined his career after that. He threw so many pitches he can never pitch again. But the Mets got their no-hitter. And to many Mets fans, and even to Johan probably, it was worth it because it was such a big moment for the Mets. If the Nets win an NBA championship and Kevin Durant never plays again, it's worth it. You guys would disagree. You guys disagree with that. But that's where our priorities are different.
You guys were already in the finals. If you guys were already in the finals and it was like, all right, like, should we send him out here? Yes, I completely agree with that. But here's the thing. I don't think it's likely that you guys reach the finals. And in the scenario where it's the most likely, you'd have to full speed send him with no load management, no warm up. And that is incredibly higher for an injury to happen versus load managing him into. So I agree that in the sense of, if you were able to load manage him now versus load manage him next season, I agree. It's about the same risk of injury. But you're not going to be able to load manage him now. You are going to have to full send him into playoff mode, which increases it a lot as far as injury.
All right, we got to move on. Clay, I appreciate your comments. Max, you seem to have disappeared, which I'm not exactly sure how that happened. Oh, he's back. Max is back. Anyway, good argument here. You can clearly see that we're passionate about this. We'll see what happens.
Max, do you have any final statements?
Hopefully there will be a season. All right, that's segment 5. And now we're turning over to segment 6, where we will interview Jacob Cohen about Cleveland sports. All right, everybody. And now we welcome in Jacob Cohen, who just graduated, or I guess he's about to graduate. He just finished up all his classes at the University of Pennsylvania. He's in AE with Max and me. And he's a big Cleveland sports fan. He's lived in Cleveland his whole life. And there's a little bit of an inconsistency here because when LeBron left the first time, they hated him. Then he came back. He won a championship. And now, even though he left them again, they like LeBron, which to me, as not a basketball fan, makes absolutely no sense. If I had that happen, if Jamal Adams left, came back, won a championship, left again, no, I would not like him. He left twice. Like, he abandoned my team twice. Total disrespect. But that's not the case with LeBron. So Jacob's going to explain why that's not the case.
Yeah, so it's a really good question. Thanks so much for having me on. I'll start with the first time. So the first time LeBron was here, he was drafted in 2003, the hometown boy coming to the Cavs. And we thought, like, this was the time. First 2 years, I'm pretty sure if I have it correct, they didn't make the playoffs. And they made the playoffs. They faced the Wizards every single year in the playoffs. Finally, in 2007, they broke through, made it to the finals. And we thought, okay, within the next year or two, we're winning a championship. They then 2008, 2009, 2010, they'd be the best team in the East every single year, but never break through and get to the finals. So when LeBron left in 2010, we were devastated. I personally was at summer camp up in Maine when I heard LeBron left, and I cried myself to sleep.
Did you get to watch it? Did you get to watch it on ESPN? Did they show it for you guys?
We did.
We had the same thing. I remember that.
They knew it was such a big event that they let us watch it, but my whole bunk was making fun of me because I was devastated, and they all obviously didn't care that I was hysterically crying myself to sleep because this was the end of the Cavs. Also, if you look back to 2010, at that point the Indians sucked and the Browns sucked. So I was like, okay, no chance of any championships. We then hated LeBron with all of our might. In fact, if you look back at the beginning of the 2010 season when he was in Miami, the first game of the season, and you can correct me if this is wrong, the Celtics beat the Heat, and then the next game, the Cavs beat the Celtics. And I posted something on Facebook along the lines of like, I just learned about the transitive property at school. The Cavs beat the Celtics and the Celtics beat the Heat. The Cavs are better than the Heat. Screw LeBron. Like, Cavs are better off without him. Obviously, that wasn't the case. We were basically the worst team in the league for a few years, and we booed him at every chance we got. People I know burned his jersey. And to be honest, I supported all of that hatred of LeBron. And some people say then, how did you embrace him when he came back to Cleveland? And my answer is, I'm not a fan of LeBron. I'm a fan of the Cavs. So if LeBron's on the Cavs, of course, I'm going to be a fan of him and a fan of the Cavs. So 2014, when he comes back, I'm driving in my car and I hear it come on 92.3 The Fan, a local sports talk radio station, that they have a big announcement that LeBron's coming back. I'm not sure the exact day it was. I think it was about July 10th, 2014. And we went nuts. Everyone was like, okay, this is the time. They had just drafted Andrew Wiggins. We thought it was going to be Kyrie, Andrew Wiggins, and LeBron. Of course, they flipped Wiggins for Love, which that's another thing people like to debate. It was a great trade, in my opinion. We won a championship. That's all that matters. And that's sort of my whole point is, in 2016, amazing year, we won the championship, and that forever, LeBron is forever immortal in Cleveland, can never be disliked by any true Cavs fan, because Cleveland had gone 54 years without winning a championship. Our last championship was we had gone 52 years. Our last championship was in 1964 when the Browns won the NFL championship before it even was the Super Bowl. It's hard to explain how much that championship meant to the city of Cleveland, that LeBron will never be disliked. And for that same reason, for all of the economists out there, the marginal utility of the second Cavs championship would have been so small compared to that marginal utility of the first Cavs championship. That's why him leaving the second time didn't hurt nearly as much.
So when LeBron came back, you were at that game, right?
I was, yeah. It was insane, actually. Of course.
So what percent cheered him about?
100%. No one at the game was booing him.
Yeah, that's such a Midwest thing.
At first I didn't realize what you were saying. I was at the game when he came back in 2014, the first game of the season when he was a Cav. I was also at the game when he came back as a Laker, and I would say 95% cheered him. There might have been a few people who stubbornly were there to boo him, but the overwhelming majority of the fans cheered him, because still to that day, that one championship means so much to the city.
Yeah, Clay, what are your thoughts here? So you're a big Cleveland sports guy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a diehard Browns fan, and I'm a LeBron fan too. So, I mean, I didn't like the way he went about the decision, but I didn't necessarily mind the move to Miami, especially because, I mean, the management was terrible. They refused to put any talent around him. I mean, even if you look at Jordan, they gave him Scottie Pippen. You look at Shaq, they brought him Kobe. I mean, and you can go on and on and on. Whether they tried or not, I mean, they tried to acquire old Baron Davis, and that was about the best talent they put around him. So, I mean, I didn't like the way he went about his decision. I can talk about that more in extent at a different time. But as far as when he came back, I mean, it was a no-brainer that Cavs fans were going to, embrace him again, because you're going to be stubborn for no reason. I mean, like, he's coming back to help you win now, and he also matured. He went about it differently. If you look at his decision to come back, he talks about how, he's not guaranteeing any championship. He can't promise anything, but he's going to promise that he will try his hardest. And, I think he did and said all the right things. And but for Kyrie being extremely stubborn, I still think he'd be in Cleveland right now.
Yeah, it's probably true if it wasn't for Kyrie leaving. But even Kyrie, it's hard to dislike him after hitting that shot to get us there.
Oh, Kyrie
I think
was massive.
I think any ill will towards the decision in 2011 went right out the door the minute Kevin Durant signed with the Warriors.
Agreed.
Yeah,
you're thinking about this from a pure
now.
NBA standpoint and not as a fan of the Cavs.
Yeah,
that's
right. Yeah, that's fair.
The only thing one thing that gets me so angry is when people try to compare LeBron's move to the Heat to Kevin Durant's move to the Warriors. That every time. It blows me.
Max just did it. So let's save this for a future debate.
No. He was saying that all ill will towards LeBron. Like everyone's argument against LeBron is, he can't win. Like his decision was the biggest snake move in all of sports. And once Kevin Durant went to the Warriors, the 73 Warriors, LeBron's move looked like it wasn't even that bad.
Yeah, but you can argue too. I mean, this isn't really the time to have this discussion, but we will anyway. Like you can argue it both ways that because LeBron went to the Heat, that paved the way for Kevin Durant to go to the Warriors, and that they're not mutually exclusive. I don't like either. I think that that's my issue with the NBA, that you don't see that in other sports. And these guys are taking these powerhouse teams, and it ruins the competitive balance. It's the whole reason why the salary cap's in existence to begin with.
But also what's under talked about, I mean, what initially started, if you want to go way, way, way back, what started kind of super teams was Kareem. When he was like, I want to get traded and I'm only going to allow myself to get traded to one of two places. Mm-hmm. Right. So, and then more recently, you talk about the Celtics when Kevin Garnett did the same thing where he's like, I'm only getting traded to a couple of places. I mean, that in itself is how you can form a super team more easily without free agents.
Yeah.
And that kind of super team culture caused, and I mean, I'm a diehard LeBron fan, so I'm going to always defend him biasly, but in my opinion, that kind of caused this culture of needing a super team versus just teaming up with friends. But I can see both sides.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's happening in the NFL now as well, though.
Jacob, do you have anything else to add? Or
I don't think so, unless you guys have specific questions for me.
Is LeBron your favorite Cavs player of all time?
I would say so. He definitely is my favorite player of all time just because what he did for us. However, I have a few runner-ups, such as Zydrunas Ilgauskas. Big Z was a great one. Anderson Varejao. It was honestly devastating that Varejao was actually on the 2015 Cavs, but then the 2016 Warriors. That was so devastating. And then Matthew. Sorry?
I was shocked the Cavs released him because they released him, didn't they?
Yeah, it was a part of a trade. It was how they got Channing Frye, who ended up being a big part of that team. So it made sense, but it was tough. And then the third guy who I also love is Matthew Dellavedova, who's now back with the Cavs, and everyone here loves him because he's so gritty. Will get on the floor, fight for every ball, things like that.
Did the Cavs win slightly soften the blow of the Indians' loss that year?
It's hard. It's if the Indians had lost first and then the Cavs won, I would say yes. But because the Cavs had already won, we thought we were getting 2 championships in a row. I flew home from college for Game 6, thinking I was going home to watch the Indians win the World Series. Obviously, it didn't go how we wanted. However, I will say that the Indians blowing the 3-1 at a future time, why I think it's very different. But in short, the Warriors were better than the Cavs all regular season. They had a 3-1 lead, and then the Cavs came back. The Cubs were significantly better than that Indians team all season long. The Indians had a 3-1 lead, but the Cubs favored in each individual for games 5, 6, and 7. The chain that it's not shocking that it happened looking back on it.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jacob. We appreciate you
Alrighty.
coming
Thanks
on,
for having me.
And we're looking forward to having you on in the future sometime. So thanks again.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Jacob, for coming on and talking about LeBron and Cleveland sports in general. And now we're moving on to segment number 7, which is going to be predictions. And we're going to keep track of how well we do on these predictions throughout the show. And today's predictions are going to surround the return of the NBA. So, Clay, we'll start with you with question 1. Will the NBA season return? And if so, when will the first playoff or regular season game be?
Yes, I absolutely think the NBA season will return. I think at this point they would have stopped trying if they had no intention of returning or if they thought it was unrealistic. So that gives me hope that it will return. I actually think it'll return at Disney World. I think Disney World is the
We'll get to the format. We'll get to the format in a minute. Just tell us the date. When do you think the first regular playoff game will be?
Prediction-wise, I think it'll be July 7th.
July 7th. That's my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Max, go ahead. When will the NBA season return? And, well, will it return? And then, if so, when?
I think the NBA starts July 4th. I think it's that Saturday. I think they want to give everyone something to celebrate that weekend.
So, my take, I agree. I think the NBA season will return. I'm on a later trajectory than both of you. I think that training camp resuming around the time you're talking about is realistic, but I think that it's going to be another 3 weeks probably until the regular season returns. And I'll get to the format in a bit.
So what's your exact
question? I think that they're going to resume. I think Friday, July 17th. Friday, July 17th. That's my prediction. All right. And we're keeping track of these. So July 17th for Teddy, and then July 7th for Clay, and July 4th for Max. All right. So now the second question today is, what will the format of the new NBA season look like? So we'll start again with Clay.
So I think it'll actually be at Disney World. From what I read, I don't have the exact number, but from what I read, apparently there's like 7 to 11 full court basketball courts. And Disney World makes a lot of sense. It's a lot of space, plenty of space for players and their families if they were to bring them, like if they had young children that weren't in school necessarily to bring. But it's also an isolated spot where no one can get in or out of the park. Versus, Vegas, I think Disney World makes a ton of logistical sense. As far as format, it's interesting. I kind of have a best case and worst case scenario. Best case, they just play it as normal. They do all the regular season games and continue the playoffs. Maybe they shrink down time because there will be no travel days, because no one's flying from LA to New York. It's only walking from court to court. But then you also run into the, it could be more stress on the players' bodies, having, trying to condense and squeeze games in. And then I think kind of the worst case scenario, because I don't think it's realistic to jump right to playoffs. I think that's not going to happen. Even with this kind of warm-up training camp type deal, it's not going to happen. They're at least going to play some games. Even if they're scrimmages and don't mean anything, they will happen. But also at the same time, I think you at least have to have a tournament, like a round-robin tournament for the 8th seed, because there are multiple teams that are within some games. I think what they'll probably do, and I got to credit this to Channing Frye because I heard it from him, they might do something where like number 1 plays number 16. So like the Lakers would play the Warriors in the West for like 2 or 3 games. And then, so on and so forth. And maybe a couple teams fighting for the 8th seed or the 7th seed if it's close. We'll kind of have a round robin tournament so that seeds aren't shifted as much. But it allows teams still fighting for the playoffs to get into the playoffs, and it allows teams the exact same number of games to kind of warm up and get ready for the playoffs.
So, which scenario will it be? And like quickly, which one do you think it'll be? You got to pick one for the stand.
I think it will be the first one. I think they'll just do the regular season. Hope they can condense games down, days down, because they can condense travel. And then I think what they'll do is once a team is eliminated or done with games, they'll just be like, you're welcome to go home.
Okay. Max, what about you? What will the format of the NBA resume?
I think it's going to be similar to Clay's, but different. And I think that this would be a good case scenario because I think it allows it limits the amount of people that are involved. I think what you have is in the West, I believe the 8 seed through the 11 or 12 seed are within 5 games of each other. So with those teams, you would have a round robin tournament for the 8 seed, and you'd let the top 7 teams in the West, you'd let them play round robin, like as sort of a preseason games to get their body warmed up, to get their
Like
chemistry back.
don't count.
What?
Like scrimmages that don't count.
Scrimmages that don't count. And then in the East, I believe the top 6 seeds are locked in. I think 7 through 10 is in play, so I think they're going to do the similar thing with 7 through 10 and have them play a round robin tournament. Let those teams fight out for the last couple of playoff spots. Let the other teams go home because they're not really playing for anything. You would broadcast every game nationally, and you can do it all day. Like, I agree it's going to be at Walt Disney, and you could do it all day the same way that the Summer League works. And I think that those bottom teams, there's no need for them to be there. They don't need to risk injury. They don't need to bring more people to the area. I just think it'll be better that way.
All right. So I disagree with both of you. I think that it will not be at Disney. I think it's going to be at the home team arenas with no fans. And the reason for that is I don't think the Players Association is going to agree to do it at one location. I think that players I think that the league won't really let the players bring their families, and I think the players aren't going to want to go 2 or 3 months without seeing their families. So I see it happening at the team's home arenas, which is what seems like is a trend in the MLB. We haven't really seen much on this in the NBA, but I do see it being at the home team arenas. And the format is interesting because so
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question about your so not including the format? So if you're going to have it at the home team arena, right? I'm assuming you're saying that they can go back and live with their families, right?
Yes.
So what do you do if all of a sudden LeBron shows up with coronavirus a week before playoffs?
He's going to have to quarantine for 2 weeks. You're going to have to expand the rosters, and it's just going to be what it is. You're going to have they're going to have to test. Like, I recognize the league doesn't want to do it because they think it shows like that they're hoarding the tests, but hopefully by July there'll be enough tests where they're able to test everyone going into the arena, and at least do temperature and oxygen tests.
Yep.
So if they can't do the full coronavirus test. So I do think it'll be at the arena. I think that the Players Association isn't going to let it be at the one place. I think the one place is better, but I don't think the Players Association will agree to it. And then in terms of the format, I touched on this earlier. Like, the regional sports networks need regular season games to happen because they're paying for it. The teams want this revenue. It's a two-way street here. I do think regular season games are going to happen, plus a tune-up. So there's about 17 regular season games left for each team. I agree with Max. There's going to be some sort of change rather than just like the full schedule. So what I think is going to happen is there's going to be a 4-week training camp, and in that there's going to be scrimmages, but there's going to be no games between teams. Then each team is going to play 10 regular season games, and that's going to be over the course of 20 days. And they're going to reset the schedule so that way it's basically like a round robin type thing where they're fighting for the seeds, but the bottom teams are going to play against the top teams. So it's going to be the bottom versus the top teams, and then like the middle teams playing each other. Okay? Because you don't want the top teams playing each other because then it's too much of a foreshadow for the playoffs. Right? And they're going to try to limit travel, so they'll keep the East together, West together. But once you're traveling, like, to me, if you're flying from New York to Miami, why does it make a difference on the team charter? Why does it make a difference if you fly from New York to Miami versus New York to LA? Right? Like, it doesn't really make a difference. The difference would be to fit more games in a shorter time. That's the difference. But yeah, that's my prediction. And then in normal playoffs. And I think that the season won't end until like probably October. And then the new season will start on Christmas, and then that's going to be the new NBA set calendar forever, which we can talk to about later. But the new season will start on Christmas, and then that'll continue because like no one pays attention to the NBA during football season anymore. All right, and now who will win the NBA championship, assuming the season happens? This is going to be a rapid fire round. Clay.
I think the Lakers. I think the
Clippers.
I think the Brooklyn Nets. All right. This is kind of on my take before, but we'll get to this. All right, boom or bust. So again, we're going to keep standings. Prompt number 1. We will have at least one, and this is going to be quick. We're just going to say boom or bust. We're not going to offer rationale, okay? So prompt number 1. We will have at least one of the MLB, NHL, or NBA playing a live regular season or a playoff game by July 1st? Boom or bust?
Bust. No way.
Max.
MLB starts July 1st.
Clay, it's interesting you say bust no way because you think the NBA resumes just a week later. So
Yeah. I think a week makes.
you think that much changes in 1 week.
Yeah.
I think boom. I think the NBA. I agree with Max. MLB July 1st. All right, next
You
one.
said before July 1st.
Oh, but by or like July 1st counts.
Okay, yeah. I mean, yeah, I'd still say, but I mean, like, I think in this time, I know I said that I think it starts July 7th,
Mhm.
But I think in this time, a week makes a huge difference because even if, and I know we're doing rapid fire, but even if they start, quarantining or doing drills and stuff like that, 5-on-5 scrimmages or MLB, spring training, a week still takes time for them to actually start playing games.
Yep.
So I do.
All right, prop number 2. Boom or bust. We will have fans in stadiums this season for the NFL at some point. Clay.
No, and I said no. So bust unless seasons are pushed back. Unless like the NFL gets pushed back.
Right.
Start date.
Max.
I'm going to be an optimist. I'm going to say by the NFL playoffs, we have fans in the stadium. I think there's going to be a vaccine in January, but that's an entire different conversation. I'm going to be an optimist and say fans are in the stadium by January 1st.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I said
I'm going to say boom. And the reason for this is the NFL's kind of defied our logic throughout. Everyone was hating on them for holding the draft and free agency, and they did it really well. And I think that they're going to find a way to get fans in the stadium. I think that it's not going to be full capacity at first. I think they're going to require masks. And like you saw what the Dolphins just did with their, or I don't know if you've seen it, but the Dolphins released some plan basically to how to get people into the stadium and how to socially distance at the stadium. So I think boom. I think that opening day will have some fans. I think it'll probably be about 15,000. I think that'll gradually go up. And by this playoffs, I think that we'll be at full capacity. There may be masks, which will look like it'll be an interesting, different look, but you will get used to it. And I think by the playoffs, it'll be full. But yeah, so that's boom. All right, prop number 3. Drew Brees is
I thought we weren't going in depth about it.
Yeah, but I had to justify my take. I don't know, man. All right. Prop number 3. This one we're gonna let Max go in depth for because he hasn't really talked that much today. Okay, Max is gonna go in depth here. Drew Brees is a top 3 quarterback of all time. Boom or bust?
I think he's the second greatest quarterback of all time. I think from a period of, let's say, 2009 to 2014, before one of their personnel people, Ryan Pace, left the team, that team had probably the worst defense in NFL history. But Drew Brees was constantly putting up monster numbers. He was constantly throwing 5,000 yards to receivers that you wouldn't consider elite because Michael Thomas came on board in 2016. I think Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback of all time. I think 6 Super Bowls and 14 or 15 AFC championships is unparalleled. But I think Drew Brees is the second greatest quarterback of all time as he consistently puts up unbelievable numbers with no defense whatsoever and subpar receivers throughout his career. Sean Payton has helped, but I still think Drew Brees is a beast, and I still think he's going to be elite this year.
Clay?
Bust because I have Brady as the GOAT. Then I have kind of Montana and Peyton Manning as an interchangeable 2-3, depending on how you look at it. If you look at accolades, then Montana. If you look at just numbers and performance, you look at Manning. And then I have Brees as kind of alone in his own tier 3 as the 4th greatest ever.
Interesting. So I'm going to say boom. So I guess I've agreed with Max on all 3 of these. I say boom. He is the most passing yards and touchdowns of all time. And yeah, he's only won 1 Super Bowl, but I think he's the 3rd best, arguably the 2nd best, with Brady being 1 and then Montana and Brees being 2 and 3 in some order. All right, now we're moving on to segment number 9, and this is going to be the hot take segment. So we're all going to come up with our own take, and again, we're going to keep standings. If these takes come true, we each get a point. So Max, go ahead.
I'm going to start off with a fuego one. The Denver Broncos reached the AFC Championship to meet their division rival, the Kansas City Chiefs.
Wow. So they
Denver
right.
Broncos with Drew Lock, who you're going to talk about more next week when we do a heavy NFL podcast.
I
Right?
will go in depth about Drew Lock next week. But if you look at their running backs, their running back core, I think right now maybe is the best in the league in terms of Melvin Gordon, Phillip Lindsay, and Royce Freeman. You added 2 great receivers in Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler to go along with the rising star in Cortland Sutton. You have Noah Fant, who near the end of the year last year, he was looking like a top-tier tight end. Like rookie tight ends don't really make an impact their first year. But if you look at the second half of the year, you have Noah Fant emerging as this potential superstar tight end. You have Bradley Chubb coming back from injury. I think they have the pieces to go all the way to go to the AFC Championship.
Clay, what do you got?
And to reiterate, Max, you're saying Denver Broncos versus the Kansas City Chiefs.
Correct.
Okay. My hot take, which is actually was my hot take last year, is that Myles Garrett's going to win Defensive Player of the Year. And here's why. I thought that last year he was going to win it. And he actually was on pace to do it before an incident that I still believe he is innocent. But that's a topic for another day. I think that now he's got a better kind of defensive scheme around him. We got Woods from San Francisco. I think that Olivier Vernon is going to be more acclimated. We could even potentially be in the running to sign Everson Griffin or Jadeveon Clowney. I think people are going to have to focus on him less because I think our defense will be better, but he's still going to get consistently double teamed. 4th season, he's continued to progress. He was averaging a sack a game last year, as well as multiple pressures a game. I think it's a great bet if you're into sports betting.
Yep. That's if he doesn't get suspended after he broke Trevor Simeon's leg and then had the whole the whole Rudolph incident, which we won't get into today. My hot take, I've kind of touched on my hot take before, but it's that the Nets are going to win the NBA championship this year. Okay, I think that I could put the if before it if KD and Kyrie return, but I'm just going to be bold because it's hot takes. The Nets will win the NBA championship this year. All right, and now we're on to segment number 10, which is going to be our top 10 list. So every week we're going to have the segment, all 10 segments, and this is part of why it's 10K Sports. We're going to really be featuring this number 10, the 10 segments, the top 10 list. Today's top 10 list is going to be the top 10 NFL players today. If the season started today, top 10 players in the league. Clay, go ahead.
And let's reiterate something that we're going based off talent, not obviously if we were drafting today, odds are the first 10 picks would be quarterbacks, but we're just going based off talent and what we think.
And age isn't such a factor because it's really today, how they are today.
Yeah,
So,
age is not a factor.
Clay, give us
So
your 10.
number one,
top 10.
I got Patty Mahomes. I mean, he's not only is he a quarterback, but he's so good at what he does.
And just list the top 10, and you can provide like a minute of
Number
explanation after.
2, Aaron Donald, probably easily the best defensive player in the league. Number 3, Russell Wilson. Number 4, Lamar Jackson. Number 5, Max's boy, Khalil Mack. Number 6, George Kittle. Number 7, Christian McCaffrey. Number 8, Michael Thomas. Number 9, Julio Jones. Number 10, Bobby Wagner. And I just want to say I was debating between Drew Brees and Bobby Wagner, but I decided to go Wagner at the end.
All right, Max, give us your top 10.
So my list is very similar to Clay's, and I swear this was not coordinated beforehand, but I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes at 1, Aaron Donald 2, Russell Wilson 3, Lamar Jackson at 4. That was the same top 4 as Clay's. I'm then going to go with Michael Thomas at 5, George Kittle at 6, Khalil Mack at 7, Julio Jones at 8, Christian McCaffrey at 9, Bobby Wagner at 10. And I had Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, and Stephon Gilmore all making considerations to jump in that top 10.
So again, like this isn't going to be so interesting because my top 10 is pretty similar. So I have the same top 4, different order though. So number 1, Patrick Mahomes. Number 2, Russell Wilson. Number 3, Lamar Jackson. Number 4, Aaron Donald. I value the quarterback higher. I know we're talking overall talent, but I value the quarterback. So top 3 quarterbacks. Then number 5, Khalil Mack. Number 6, Michael Thomas. Number 7, Christian McCaffrey. Number 8, George Kittle. Number 9, Drew Brees. And number 10, Stephon Gilmore. Got to value the quarterback. I love Drew Brees. McCaffrey just had an insane season. So did Thomas. Khalil Mack and Aaron Donald are just defensive monsters. And yeah, that's my top 10 list. So that's all we got today. Let's go to any concluding marks from you, Clay.
we'll discuss more in depth about the NFL schedule and our predictions next episode. I'm excited. Yeah, go Browns.
Max?
Next week, at the beginning of this segment, I can't wait to discuss what this logo means and why 10K Sports has these different athletes on, because it's a random.
Why don't you talk about it now?
Well, no, we'll talk about that next episode.
Talk about it next episode? Okay.
Next episode, we'll also discuss our favorite teams and why they became our favorite team.
Good, yeah. And we'll talk about the two logos as well. So, all right, thinking on the fly here. All right, and then I'm just going to conclude by saying thank you to our listeners. We're looking for a sponsor, so if anyone wants to sponsor us, we'd love to have that.
Apple.
We can, if we got a sponsor, we can upgrade our site to what's it called, to the premium version of the site. Follow us on Twitter, 10K_sports. Hit us up on Instagram with the same username. And we appreciate you tuning in. And if you'd like to be a guest on a future segment, reach out to any of us. We'd love to have you. And thank you to our guests, Jacob, Jared, and Simon. Thank you to our listeners. Thank you to Clay. Thank you to Max. We appreciate everyone's hard work, and we hope that we have live sports soon. Thank you very much for watching, and that's all we got. So stay tuned for episode 2. We hope you'd enjoy.